Claire had always prided herself on being a devoted wife. Nearly a decade of marriage had woven her life so deeply with Daniel's that she sometimes struggled to see where she ended and he began. They had built a comfortable existence together, a charming home in the suburbs, successful careers that kept them busy, and a daily routine that, while predictable, provided a sense of stability. But stability, she had come to realize, could sometimes dull the edges of passion. Lately, Claire couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing. It was an ache, subtle yet persistent, something she couldn't quite put into words. Daniel, once her partner in laughter and late-night whispers, had become increasingly absorbed in his work. He came home late, distracted and exhausted. Their conversations reduced to schedules, bills, and weekend plans with friends. The intimacy they once shared had become infrequent, and when it did happen, it felt mechanical, a routine rather than a revelation of love. She told herself it was normal. Every marriage had its seasons, didn't it? But deep inside, she longed for something more, something that made her feel seen, desired, alive. The feeling lingered in the back of her mind as she stood in the kitchen one rainy afternoon, staring at the steady drip from the sink that had been ignored for weeks. Daniel had meant to fix it, but with his demanding schedule, it had been pushed aside again and again. Frustrated, Claire grabbed her phone and searched for a local plumber with good reviews. That was when she found Liam Carter. His business website was simple, professional, yet her eyes lingered on his picture longer than necessary. He appeared to be in his early 30s, dressed in a fitted work uniform that hinted at the strength beneath, his confident smile framed by just the right amount of stubble. There was something about him that made her pause, though she couldn't explain why. Shaking off the thought, she made the call. "Carter Plumbing, this is Liam." His voice was deep, smooth, effortlessly warm. "Hi, I have a leak under my kitchen sink that needs fixing. Are you available today?" "Of course. I can be there in about an hour." As Claire ended the call, she felt a strange flutter in her stomach. Anticipation, she told herself. Nothing more than the relief of finally getting the repair done. But when the doorbell rang, and she opened the door, she wasn't prepared for him. Liam stood there, rain-dampened hair slightly tousled, his sleeves rolled up to reveal strong, toned forearms. His dark eyes held an easy warmth as he offered a polite smile. "Mrs. Thompson." Claire swallowed, stepping aside. "Yes, come in." As he passed her, she caught a subtle scent of soap and cologne, something clean, masculine, inviting. She scolded herself for noticing. "It's right over here," she said, leading him to the kitchen. Liam crouched down, inspecting the pipes with practiced ease. "Looks like a worn-out seal. Shouldn't take too long," he said, flashing her another one of those effortlessly charming smiles. Claire nodded, leaning against the counter as she watched him work. She told herself she was simply being polite, but she couldn't look away. The way his muscles shifted beneath his shirt as he tightened the pipes. The way he hummed softly under his breath, completely at ease. The way the low kitchen light cast subtle shadows along his jawline. It was ridiculous, really. She had called him to fix a leak. So why did it feel like something else had just begun to unravel? Claire watched as Liam worked, his movements fluid, precise, completely at ease in his element. There was something captivating about the way he spoke about his craft, how he enjoyed working with his hands, seeing the immediate results of his efforts. It was a kind of satisfaction she couldn't quite relate to, but she envied it nonetheless. Minutes stretched into an hour, time slipping away unnoticed. For the first time in a long while, Claire was engaged in a conversation that wasn't about schedules, deadlines, or responsibilities. It was refreshing. Easy. And when Liam finally stood, wiping his hands on a rag, she felt an unexpected flicker of disappointment that the job was done. "All fixed," he said, meeting her gaze with a small smile. "No more leaks." She returned his smile, tucking a stray strand of hair behind her ear. "That's a relief." "Thank you, Liam." For the briefest moment, something unspoken passed between them. A subtle shift in the air, a flicker of intrigue that neither of them acknowledged, but both felt. "Anytime," Liam said, his voice softer now. "If you ever need anything else, just give me a call." Claire walked him to the door, her heartbeat inexplicably uneven. She told herself it was nothing, just the lingering energy of a friendly conversation. But as he stepped outside and turned back, the way his eyes lingered on her sent a shiver down her spine. "Take care, Mrs. Thompson." There was a pause, hesitation thick in the space between them. "Please, call me Claire." Liam's gaze held hers for a beat longer, something shifting in the depths of his expression. "All right, Claire," he said finally, his voice deliberate. "See you around." As she closed the door, Claire let out a shaky breath, pressing her palms against the cool wood. It had been a harmless encounter. That was all. Just a passing interaction. And yet, deep down, she knew something had shifted. Something had begun. In the days that followed, Claire found herself replaying that brief moment with Liam more times than she cared to admit. The way he had looked at her. The way he had said her name. The ease of their conversation. It lingered in her mind, slipping into her thoughts uninvited. Daniel, as always, was too distracted to notice. His late nights at the office continued, and even when he was home, he was glued to his laptop, too exhausted for anything more than the occasional half-hearted conversation. Claire didn't resent him for it. She understood the pressures of his career. But understanding didn't fill the growing emptiness inside her. And then, as if fate had sensed the turmoil brewing beneath the surface, the leak returned. Claire hesitated, staring at the slow drip of water pooling in the sink. She could have called any plumber. There were dozens of names she could have chosen. But she didn't. Instead, she scrolled through her call history, found Liam's number, and pressed dial. The phone barely rang before he answered. "Claire." Her breath caught at the sound of her name on his lips. She hadn't expected him to say it like that, so familiar, so effortlessly warm. "Hey, so the leak is back." She tried to keep her voice steady, casual, as if the words didn't carry the weight of something unspoken. "Really?" A chuckle rumbled through the phone. "I could have sworn I fixed it properly." She could hear the smile in his voice. "Guess I owe you a free repair," he continued. "I can swing by in about 30 minutes if that's okay." "That would be great," Claire said, a little too quickly. She spent the next half hour pacing the kitchen, telling herself she was being ridiculous. It was just a simple home repair. Nothing more. But when the doorbell rang, her pulse betrayed her. Liam stood on her doorstep, dressed in a dark grey t-shirt and work pants, toolbox in hand, that same confident smile playing at the corner of his lips. "Back again," he teased. "Looks like it," Claire replied, stepping aside to let him in. The air between them felt different this time. Charged. As Liam moved through the familiar motions of his work, Claire found herself watching him, really watching him. The way his muscles flexed with each precise movement. The way he seemed so present, so completely grounded in what he was doing. It was a stark contrast to Daniel, who was always lost in reports, deadlines, and conference calls. Then, without looking up, Liam spoke. "Did you miss me already?" Claire's breath hitched. She knew he was joking. But there was something beneath his words, something that sent heat curling through her stomach. "You wish," she shot back, trying to keep things light. But when Liam straightened, his expression had shifted. His gaze lingered, searching hers for something, permission, perhaps. "Claire," he started, his voice lower now. She should have stopped this. Should have stepped back, changed the subject, done anything other than stand there, feeling the quiet heat rise between them. But she didn't. Because for the first time in a long time, she felt something real. "Liam, we can't," she whispered. But there was no conviction in her voice. He took a step closer, closing the space between them. "Tell me to leave," he said softly, "and I will." Claire opened her mouth. But no words came. Instead, she found herself drowning in the way he looked at her, like she was the only thing in the world that mattered. And just like that, the line they shouldn't have crossed disappeared entirely.